Hi, this is Daniel Strauss, co-host of Woodruff and Strauss, and I'm here today with the very, very talented and very patient Kate Nocera of BuzzFeed. And as you can see, if you don't know who she is, she's the one with the BuzzFeed sticker.
That's
I
me.
really want one of those. I actually want a Kate sticker.
You want a Kate sticker?
As
Everyone
creepy as
wants
it
a Kate
sounds,
sticker.
and then a Daniel sticker too.
Yeah.
So it's Sunday today.
Yes.
Kate, the entire staff of Woodruff and Strauss, me and Betsy Woodruff, would like to thank Kate for her patience as we've tried again and again to record this episode. And we had a real good episode that just died.
But no one will.
No one will know. No one will know the majesty.
This one's going to be better, Dan.
This is going to be much better. So today was my one day off, and right after I came back from the Values Voter Summit, which is kind of like mini CPAC for social conservatives, and it's the 9th annual one, and Rick Santorum made a quip there. He was like, I better get a trophy or something because I've been to all of them, and I should get something for 10. Classic Rick.
I'm glad to see he's still
right. Still like making demands or something.
Yeah.
So I wanted to. The interesting thing about VVS is that it's a social conservative concept, but the big thing, the big overlying theme I saw this year was that there was a lot of foreign policy, and there was a lot more foreign policy stuff than last year. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't just in the speeches, which were to be expected, but there was this one point where this woman, after I think Glenn Beck's speech, came up to the press area, and she was like, how many of you guys have served in the military? And nobody raised their hands. I think partially because some of us were just like, what is this woman doing?
Right.
And so she was like, none of you, oh, and just sort of walked away. Which was a first for me, Kate.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
I think it probably reiterates to her that we're a bunch of lazy
tree hugging,
do nothings,
gossips, right? Or something. Yep.
Yeah.
I guess.
So people were thinking a lot about foreign policy at Value Voters.
Yeah. So it was a lot of dissatisfaction with Obama's handling of foreign policy. There was, to an extent, I sensed a bit of Schadenfreude about the Iraq War. I mean, there were a lot of comparisons to that, but there was a big sense that Obama had missed his chance and on fighting radical Islam. And the premise to statements like that were always, we're not against Muslims. We are against radical Muslims that want to destroy America. Mm-hmm. So it was never like we're against this faction that's controlling Syria or something. Mm-hmm. It was always that. And I don't know. It's just I'm wondering if this is going to be a bigger part of conservatism going forward, and it's especially strange because one of the top tier candidates for president in 2016 is Rand Paul, who's kind of fighting the isolationist bent of libertarians, and that his father had previously. Are you surprised by this? I know you were monitoring some of this.
I mean, I don't think I'm surprised. I'm sort of surprised at how quickly we've shifted from let's not intervene at all. Like last year when Obama wanted to bomb Syria to attack Bashar al-Assad, people were like, absolutely not. No way. Let's not get involved. It's their civil war. We're not going to, do anything. He made promises to pull out of Iraq, which he did, and pull out of Afghanistan, which he did, which are now, foreign policy types are blaming for sort of the emergence of groups like ISIS.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of surprised at how quickly like the public, the public sentiment has been from let's not get involved at all anymore to no, we're really going to go in and we really have to destroy these guys. And I think that this is really a reflection of that. And so with Rand, he probably senses the public sentiment too. I mean, these guys read the polls, right? Like,
Yeah.
they know what's going on. And so he needs to make sure he doesn't look too much like a dove, you know?
I mean, and isn't that the crazy thing about it, though, is that I wonder what, I mean, one of the big appeals of Rand is that his libertarian bent, right, is supposed to appeal to young people and young conservatives. Right. I gotta think, I haven't looked at the polling on this, but I gotta think there's broad consensus among young people that they don't want to get into another war. I think a lot of 20-somethings, both liberal and conservative, are just not having it.
I think it's scary to think about, because we all saw what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan, and here we are, 13, 14 years later, still involved, still sort of talking about the same issues. And I think that for Rand, he's walking this very fine line between, okay, we need to do something, but there needs to be a parameter on it. There needs to be an end date. We need to talk about money. It's a conversation I haven't even heard. Like, how much money are we going to spend on this?
Yeah, that's a good question. No one has really. Everyone's like, we got to just bomb it.
We got to go. We got to go. I mean, and I think that I really think that there's no one out there that I've heard that said, "Oh, we should just leave ISIS alone," right? Just let them do their thing. No one is saying that. No Democrat is saying that. No liberal. No conservative. It's just a matter of how far do you want to go? How, involved do you want to be? Boehner this morning on ABC News, he even suggested that ground troops might be necessary. And that's the thing that really, so far, the polling has shown people don't want it all. They don't want troops on the ground. But it's one of those things, like, is it going to escalate? How, far do we have to go?
I mean, it's pretty shocking if Boehner is saying that, right? Like,
yeah, that's a full full circle. We're going
right, and this is from a House Speaker who is not. I mean, he does not usually cast the first stone. He usually has a lieutenant, throw out a trial balloon before suggesting something that could become policy or the stance of the entire caucus and really the entire party. Right.
I think that Boehner is still a pretty old school Republican in the vein of Cheney, in the vein of Bush, who like, all right, if we're going to go in, if we're going to spend American resources and money and time, like, let's really do it right. And to him, that means perhaps involving troops on the ground, which is something I'm starting to see bubble up a lot more among sort of the old guard Republicans. Now, is Rand going to call for troops on the ground? If he does, I will fall over. That's like... That'll be a story.
It's just, I mean, it's such a weird for Rand. This is the most fascinating thing right now for Rand, or for me, or for the right on this, because Rand. What are the big solutions? It's bombing and using drones, which is something that libertarians are strongly and very specifically against, and even some liberals are not fans of and agree on them. That's sort of the unison on this point. And then boots on the ground again, something that. It's hard for someone like Rand to really like come to terms with. So how does Rand like not not concede ground to other 2016 hopefuls who need to establish their foreign policy bona fides, like Chris Christie and Ted Cruz, but at the same time not.
Rubio. If you listen to Rubio is like, let's go. Let's do
this. Yeah, is this Rubio's big moment to like?
I think so.
Least, yeah, so he's been. This might be his chance to maybe not become like a party leader de facto again, but at least gain some ground again.
Stepping out and talking about this in a much more significant way than we've seen him talk about anything in a long time. And Cruz is super interesting because he and Rand on paper, in their votes, in kind of when you get down to the nitty gritty of what they think the policy should be in Iraq and Syria, is not that different. It's just that Cruz sounds so much more, his rhetoric is so much more hawkish than Rand's, whereas Rand feels like a little more like, all right, let's take it easy, think about this, debate. He makes pretty clear that, the policy of going in and just destroying these countries, which we've done the last, 10 years, is not really workable again, and to try to not make the same mistakes.
Well, it seems like the thing about the Rand's values voters speech was that, he didn't have to focus on foreign policy, but of the three that day, so it was Rand, it was David Dewhurst, who's lieutenant governor of Texas, and it was Ted Cruz. Rand spent a lot of time talking about, the worldwide persecution of Christians and focusing on foreign policy.
Well, don't you think, though, that that's because Rand is maybe not super comfortable talking about social issues in the way that a Value Voter Summit goer might need him to talk about it?
Yeah, actually, I do.
Right.
He would. Yeah, you're right. He probably would be giving that speech anyway. So
right.
This is a good point. He's in a really awkward position to going to the VVS, and he can't talk about social issues like fighting abortion and stuff, because that's not. It's
part of his thing where he says he's really pro-life, but he thinks I think he said it earlier this year that Republicans should stop focusing so much on abortion. And no, it's not going to talk about gay marriage either. So I think this is probably the place where he is most comfortable. Whereas like Dewhurst and Cruz are like fine in those arenas.
Well, Dewhurst was just warning about. He said there were. He's seen reports about prayer mats on the Texas side of the Mexican.
I saw that.
Yeah. So that was shocking because a lot of this hasn't been embraced by most people.
Yeah. Where when he said there's an unconfirmed Judicial Watch story that you all should read. It's like, all right, we're gonna float that.
Okay, really? We're just gonna throw that out there.
We're just gonna throw that out there that there's some prayer mats on the Mexican border. Like. Border security and, domestic terrorism, those are things that we actively need to be, like, thinking about and concerned about as a country, as ISIS, sort of continues to talk about wanting to attack the West. However, I think an unconfirmed Judicial Watch report is maybe not the best way to
also, you got to
bring that point up.
Listen, I think a lot of the time these terrorists, like, they want to blow up a plane, so they make explosive underwear. These guys sometimes aren't exactly the smartest ones, but like leaving prayer mats if you're trying to sneak into the country, it seems sloppy. And also, if you're bringing a prayer mat, you probably want to keep that with you. It's not like it's not like you want to like drop it.
Dish in the prayer mat.
It's like, you don't just leave your Bible.
And how do we know it's like a prayer mat too? Like, what if it was like a blanket or something? Like, oh yeah, it's obviously a prayer mat.
Clearly, prayer. Maybe it says prayer mat on it. Maybe it says ISIS prayer mat.
Right, that's what this is.
For the Death to America trip or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. You should read about it in Judicial Watch.
So yeah, but to your point, Rand was in, I don't think anyone really appreciated until now how uniquely tough a situation Rand was in at the Values Voters Summit. And this is a group, the thing about the GOP right now is you have to appeal to the religious conservative base. So you have to at least get a nod or approval or not piss off the guys here, the Family Research Council which runs this, Tony Perkins and those guys. They are very helpful within a contested primary. And just really, if you're a Republican there, it's good not to have them on your back.
Right. Do you remember like when Mitt Romney went and it was like a big deal for him to go and talk to them because
he's Mormon.
He's Mormon. He had different positions on things like abortion and gay rights when he was governor of Massachusetts. It was like, and he still had to go and appeal to them. You didn't see Jeb Bush there this year. You didn't see Chris Christie there this year. There are certain folks that are kind of maybe not quite ready to go and kiss the ring.
Yeah, Perkins was asked about Chris Christie at at Value Voters at a press conference afterwards, and he basically said there's no requirement that we have to have Christie there, which is kind of shocking. And it strikes me, by the way, as more of a knock. I mean, it limits that conference more, because if you think about CPAC, it is they invite a lot of different areas of the GOP, and that helps give it some prominence. But I think, like, there's no doubt that Chris Christie is a major player within the party right now.
Yeah.
So to not have him there is kind of, I think limits your conference.
Yeah. Can we talk about my favorite speech at Value Voters?
Yeah. What is your favorite speech at Value Voters?
Which was Congressman John Fleming's speech about weed. It was
so he went on for a while about the dangers of weed.
He said it was more dangerous than cigarettes. Which was like,
but there was this one point. Okay, I want you to. So please go on, Kate. But I just want to. I want to throw out there before this. So his overarching topic of his speech was weed, and at one point, if I'm not mistaken, he asked, "Are you all convinced yet?" or something, and everyone was like, "Yeah." And it wasn't really clear if they were just like, you just do that because you're in a crowd and you don't want to like disagree with the speaker or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
but that happened. So please go on. The John Fleming speech, the most surprising speech of.
You know what? It was like what it reminded me of. It felt like it should be in a movie. You know, like it felt like it should have been in Half Baked or something. Like this, like Republican congressman getting up there to talk about like the evils of marijuana and how bad it is. And it's like that of all of the things that, you know, that like the Republican Party can kind of get together and embrace. I feel like decriminalization of marijuana is one of those things that can provide them, you know, outreach to different communities, to youth, African Americans. You know, you talk about like prison reform, you talk about all of these things in that context, and it felt like such an old school thing to hear.
It definitely was, you know, in the vein of like, if you have sex before marriage, your penis will fall off and you will die on the spot. So don't do it.
Exactly. Like, once you smoke weed, then you will be a heroin addict. And you could overdose from weed. It was stunning to me.
You know what's strange about this, though? I mean, it strikes me a little bit as sort of a generational divide. So when the Trey Raydell thing came out with, you know, being arrested for smoking cocaine, I remember talking to an older editor about this, and he was very much like, cocaine! And me and another reporter about my age were like, yeah, you know, coke. But it's like, it's this whole slippery slope. Okay.
You guys just like doing tons of coke.
Yeah, clearly, yeah, all the time. Just like TPM. I'm just gonna, no, not at all. Damn it, Kate.
We're pretty, you know, like certainly not anti-weed at BuzzFeed. I wouldn't say that I mean, like
I wasn't even going to ask you that.
Yeah, one of our like, you know, main editors at night. His Twitter handle.
With this Nocera?
His Twitter handle is Weed Dude.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, I think like I'm not going to get in trouble. I don't think. Anyway. I just thought it was really
Fleming's
funny.
Was hilarious, and the applause. I mean, if we're judging by the applause, the applause level was definitely kind of unsure of himself. Partially because Fleming isn't a huge name, in the party,
right? He's like a guy reporters know, because it's like, who can I get to say a thing about a thing? Oh, right. John Fleming.
I need someone to say what I'm looking for in this story.
Yeah.
So the quote is not from me. John Fleming. Here we go.
Hello, John Fleming. How are you?
But he, you know, I guess he made his mark there.
Yeah.
On that front or something. I don't know. I mean,
you know, like, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't really see a lot of members of the party really running to embrace that particular stance. Like you can generally find people who, you know, are definitely like against gay marriage, you know, who, you know, all of them very pro-life. It's when marijuana is one of those things where it's like it is harder and harder and harder to find someone who is like, yep, that's the devil weed.
The devil weed.
So
that is Satan's plan.
right.
Which is, if anyone would have said that, I think it would have been said at VVS. But frankly, Fleming was the only one carrying that cross.
That torch, yeah.
Yeah. There weren't a lot of other people. I mean, if I were just someone and I was like, I need to go to VVS to find out what the real plights of America are, I would not come away saying weed is real bad.
Yeah.
You know, this Syria thing and gay marriage are also bad, but weed. God watch out
Let me
for
tell
that
you
one.
about it.
You know, it's also, by the way, the one of the most interesting panels I went to at VVS was on gay marriage and sort of the future of gay marriage, and it was sponsored by the National Organization of Marriage, which is very much a group that, I mean, their core mission is to retain the definition of marriage is between one man and one woman, and they basically said a lot of polling is on this matter is skewed. And the other thing about it is that, and this is actually a theme I heard at multiple panels on this, that if what really needs to happen is that there need to be statewide votes on gay marriage bans, because these judges who are overturning these bans, that's bullshit, they're saying, and it makes no sense, and that's not really the will of the people. What should be happening is we should be holding votes in everywhere from Wyoming to Utah to like Iowa on gay marriage, and see what people say on the issue. I think that's where we're at now. It's particularly important because the Supreme Court is about to come back, and they're going to consider whether to take up 3 cases, I think, on gay marriage. And we'll have to see on that issue.
It's one of those things where I think I think by the time the 2016 election rolls around, it's not going to be an issue that any Republican candidate is really particularly going to want to be on the other side of. You know, it's like I think the Supreme Court will take it up. It's moved so quickly, just even between, like 2011 and now, how many states have had judges, overturning bans in the states. I think people are getting to a point where they're like, I don't believe the polling is skewed, personally.
Okay.
That people just kind of like, yeah, no, obviously, the younger generation comes up. Yeah, of course, gay people should get married. Maybe I don't, even if you don't like homosexuality, I think there are people, I have conservative friends, Republican friends who are like on that, like, I don't care. Should not be not our business, not the state's business.
The most compelling argument I've heard on this is that the issue is not whether gay people should get, because this is the thing that, and this is not my position, but the argument that I've heard is that the issue right now is twofold. One is that marriage, in many cases, or the ceremony of marriage, is a religious event, and it's done by someone who follows the Bible and follows the idea that marriage is defined between one man and one woman. So basically, that means that that if you redefine, I'm even having trouble like laying out this argument myself. Basically, the idea is that there needs to be a way that the church can get some cover on marriage and be able to keep the idea that it's between one man and one woman. And I didn't explain it really well. That's the strongest argument I've heard on this. The arguments I've heard at VVS this year were not as strong. That's the best one, and we saw this with the whole thing about the Arizona Baker, I think, who turned away a gay couple who want to get
Oregon.
married. And then the Oregon couple,
Yeah.
or maybe it was Oregon. Sorry, the Oregon couple who were at VBS, and they were very prominently featured on this.
Yeah. I think there are two issues. Like, I don't think that anyone who supports gay marriage wants to force religious institutions that don't believe in gay marriage to perform gay marriage ceremonies. Right. I think that is, and
that's the fear, right?
Yeah, and that's their fear. It is a separate question whether a private business can say, okay, I don't believe in your lifestyle, so therefore I'm not going to serve you. And that's a separate question that I think will work its way up through the courts. I saw, that they, the Baker's argument was, we think it's against God for gay people to get married, and we're not going to bake a cake for a ceremony that we think is against, the will of God. And that question is a religious liberty question. Is it a discrimination question? I think that question is going to be featured much more prominently in the coming years rather than just marriage. And you can see social conservatives sort of turn to that, right? Like, as the issue becomes more and more mainstream, as the support for gay marriage grows, it's turning now instead to, all right, the religious liberty of private business owners who, whether or not it is a discriminatory practice for them to turn away. And I think the interesting thing that they said, we have served gay people in the past. Anyone who comes in our store, we've served them. It was the ceremony that we didn't want to participate in.
So that's what they were unhappy about. And the Oregon bakers were asked to make a wedding cake, and that was their objection.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. We got to move along. Let's talk about the Secret Service.
Okay.
We've been having a field day for a number of reasons, but basically, I'm going to leave it to you to introduce this one.
So there was this blockbuster story last night by the Washington Post that detailed a 2011 incident in which a sharpshooter, shot out of his car 5 bullets at the White House, one of which had gone actually through a window. And it took Secret Service 4 days to realize a bullet had gone into the White House.
Holy shit.
This is bananas for so many reasons. Like, oh my God, because I remember reading about these shots being fired at the White House, and it was all written off as like, oh, it was just a crazy person and no one got hit and it was fine and like we got him. We arrested
Yeah, that's what I remember too. It was just like, it just happened.
It just happened and then like we're fine. But like this story was like Secret Service, it was like a fluke that they found the guy because some tourists like saw him and found him. And then a house cleaner was cleaning near the window where the bullet had gone and sees the broken glass. And only at that point do they realize. And it's like,
I wonder if there are more bullet holes that people just haven't found yet.
Are you kidding me? I mean, it is so troubling for so many reasons. The Secret Service, the reason this story got written was because was it last week or the week before, where a man jumped over the White House fence and actually entered the White House, opened the door.
He made it across the lawn, which is actually, it's like a long lawn, too.
A long lawn,
It's like a sprint after you... Yeah. So it's pretty impressive.
And apparently the door was open, because they act like my parents acted when I was growing up in our like small town suburbia, where you just leave the door open, anyone can come in. I think they have a lot of work to do, Secret Service, and actually Daryl Issa and the Oversight Committee.
Their knee-jerk reaction is to build another fence or to add a new layer of fencing, right?
Yeah. Second, smaller fence.
Yeah.
Maybe the agency should just get their shit together and be like, what are we doing? Because I think that part of the Washington Post story was that they've kind of gotten lazy in their posturing when the president is not there. And that's part of the issue. So when the president leaves, the posture kind of everyone relaxes a little bit, which is more, I guess. But like Malia and Sasha are still there. They were in the house when the shots were fired at the house.
Michelle could be there, you know.
I mean,
Bo and Sonny are still
there. I mean, it's like unbelievable, and I think it's an agency that has a lot. I don't think the issue is going to go away. I think Congress is actually in a bipartisan way. This is going to be looked at, investigated. It's recess, and they're having a hearing on Tuesday about it. So,
So what's Daryl Ice's response going to be? I'm always interested in these sort of situations where it's like, someone like chairman of the House Oversight Committee of the opposing party to the president. Mm-hmm. He can't, and Issa in particular. I remember Ryan Liz's profile of him when it just came in as the chair. It was sort of like, this guy might be a really partisan chair of this position or of this committee. What is it like when he has to like investigate something that the president too is probably going to be pretty upset about?
Right. I'll be really interested to watch. I'm going to go to the hearing on Tuesday. I'm kind of fascinated to see how they're going to react to this. But everything I've seen on Twitter and people I've spoken to, no one has been like blaming the president necessarily, but like that the agency over the course of the last, 6 to 8 years has been involved in some stuff that's not very. There was a whole prostitution thing.
Yeah, the agency has had some serious trouble over the past few years, and
right.
I think some leadership changes too.
Yeah, and I think that I'm fascinated to see if this will turn into like it's Obama's fault.
Right. I think it's funny.
I don't think it is, though.
Right. That's the one thing. I think this is the one agency where he can't, the knee-jerk reaction, he can't be blamed because it's like, he's the first black president, y'all. He doesn't want to get shot.
Right. And in the Washington Post story, they've had 3 times as many threats to the president as previous presidents. And so I think that, maybe looking at, is the agency overworked? Are they under, are there not enough people? Like, those are questions that are going to need to be asked. That story in the Washington Post, which everyone should read, it was like,
but these two,
terrifying.
Right, these two things, it takes you 5 days that when a sniper shoots into the White House and then some dude makes it over the fence, like,
right.
These do not sound like complex stunts. It's like, I feel like there could be a situation where like
but
some
like,
kind of
think about, I mean, not to get, all fear mongering here, but like think about someone who actually does have their stuff together.
Right.
And if it's been this easy for crazy guy off the street to hop the fence and get into the White House, like what's to say someone who, has things a little more planned out. And that's why the stories scared me a lot. And I think it's one of those things that's like, it's a bad precedent. They need to get their act together. They need to get their act together quickly. And I don't think anyone of any party can really say, that this is something that the president doesn't want to happen. Like, yes, the president would like the Secret Service
the president would like to stay safe. Yeah.
To be on top of things.
Right.
Correct. Right.
Okay. Yeah, it is bonkers. I think bonkers or bananas is what you said, Kate.
Yeah,
like,
bananas.
I think that's the only appropriate response to that. I'm always also, like, I gotta be honest, I'm reporting like this is in particular really impressive to me because, like, getting the Secret Service to admit, like, there's a hole in their protection is, like, impressive in a lot of ways. It's not just like it's not like with tweet stories, I think there was the Huffington Post had something on Friday about an Oregon congressman who tweeted about or wrote on his Facebook he was clearly watching Dawson's Creek and he was something about it from there. And
that's awesome.
I'm gonna mess up who it was. But it's a familiar name, and he just was on Friday, and it came off of social media quickly, but he's watching. He's like us. He's watching
Nice.
Dawson's Creek on Friday night.
Yeah, the reporting's a little different when you have to delve into.
You can't blame an intern. Is
Right,
the thing? I guess.
Yeah, you definitely can't. And it was a stunning story, and kudos to them for breaking it because it was.
I hope we read more stories about how badass the Secret Service is, and not how like
I know.
goofy. It's
Like-
just hard. It's hard to not comically picture this in your mind of these guys being like, oh, who's that guy walking the fence? Or like,
Well,
tourists.
you have to laugh or you'll be so freaked out, right? Like it's one of those things. It's like, are you serious? This is supposed to be like the top agent. Like these are the top guys of the top guys.
Okay,
protecting
I gotta say though that like I think congressional and political security in D.C. isn't all terrible. When there was this woman, do you remember? Of course you remember. Last year there was a woman who was driving her car, flipped a barricade, but Capitol Police had their shit together. The Capitol was locked down in like 4 minutes or something.
The Capitol was locked down really quickly, and everyone was safe, and they postured in a way that was. I mean, Capitol Police is eminently impressive to me, but that woman also, like, there are questions about what happened there. I mean, that woman she was driving like a crazy person, but she was also unarmed and had a child in the back seat of her car, and they shot her.
Right, the guy who jumped the fence, didn't he have a knife?
He had a ton of ammunition in his car.
Oh yeah. What could
I mean, but in general, I feel very safe. I work in the Capitol every single day. I feel very safe by the people who are there to protect me. I think that a lot of times, though, these agencies need to kind of like look and see
they
what's
need to
going
remember
on.
the small fries as much as the big fries, I guess.
Yeah.
Or I think that's the moral of this fence jumping episode.
I think that I honestly think there will be very tough congressional oversight, and I don't think it'll be partisan. I don't think it will devolve. I could be wrong. I mean, like don't hold me to it. But
I wonder. I doubt there isn't usually polling on this, but I'd like to see. Maybe it would be a learning experience if, like, we could see polling on bipartisan flogging in this situation.
right.
Maybe that would be what it takes to raise congressional approval. Like, to see, like, see, guys, it's not always bad when you get along.
Right.
I don't know.
Kumbaya.
Kumbaya indeed. Next thing that's going on, I don't have a good segue for this, Kate. You're drinking a Dr. Pepper, which looks delicious, by the way. I love Dr. Pepper.
Me too.
I'm told I have a friend who argues about this and has a little fridge full of Coke. So this is my shout out to her.
Okay.
Eric Holder resigned last week.
He did.
Or announced his resignation.
Yeah.
And this is one of those areas where I think bipartisanship is not going to be very visible.
No.
John Barrasso echoed Ted Cruz and I think Chuck Grassley today by saying that he wants to see confirmation hearings after the next Congress is sworn in. The argument being that these Republicans say that we're going to win in November, and there are going to be a bunch of Democrats who are just pissed off with nothing to lose, so they're going to get real partisan. By the way, guys, a lot of Democrats are going to be real partisan on the next thing, no matter what they do.
Right.
All right?
That's right.
And, I mean, it's good that they're aware that any outgoing Democrat is going to be a big pain in the ass to them, but it's not going to go away, with the new Congress.
I don't know how they're planning on stopping a confirmation in the lame duck, and if whoever Obama decides to nominate, if Democrats do lose in November, that's going to be a very fast confirmation hearing. You're going to see like Leahy first thing when they get back, confirmation hearing. Let's go. Let's take it to the floor because they know they won't have a lot of time to get that done. I mean, it would be interesting. I'm sure they'll try and stop it, but I don't think they really can other than sort of run down the clock.
And the name that everybody's seeing, I mean, there were two names that came out of it. Deval Patrick, who was the 30-second favorite. Like,
And he said no. He said, I don't.
He said no, and there was since then there have been some like Sherman-esque. Well, he said no right now, or just like look at the tense of his phrase, or he could change his mind.
No, I don't think it's no.
And Don Verrilli.
I was talking that day, like someone was talking about Deval Patrick, and I was talking to someone who was close to him, and he's like, he's more likely to do a buddy comedy with Scott Brown next.
I would watch that. I would watch that. I gotta be honest. I would
the Attorney General.
We could call it like New England or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. Like if they just like go leaf peeping together.
Or canoeing. Remember, canoeing is a popular thing for Scott Brown. A tracker chased him.
That was awesome.
That was awesome. But the other favorite who seems to be, standing the test of time in Politico has been sort of hinting that they're being told that it's going to be him is Don Verrilli, whose big claim to fame was representing the Obama administration in the Supreme Court's hearing on Obamacare. And the immediate knock I saw on him from the Snap reporting on this was that in oral arguments, he didn't do that well. I thought this was kind of a weak knock because he still won.
He definitely won.
And, my father, who is a lawyer and pays close attention to this stuff, and a lot of other people thought he wasn't going to win.
Yeah.
I mean, as the former star healthcare reporter of this town, Kate Nocera, do you remember any feelings on Verrilli? Is he like? I
don't have a lot of feelings about him, but I do think that he is super trusted by the Obama administration. They really like someone who they can feel comfortable with in that position. They want someone that they not only feel comfortable with, but that they can can go out and say things that the president maybe can't say or do. And I think we saw that all the time with Holder,
being black.
He was black in a way Obama could not be.
I had to,
right?
Yeah.
That's and spoke about issues to the black community that were important to the black community in a way the president could not speak about them. Verrilli, I mean, he's white. I don't know what his
I love it. Sorry, I gotta say this to Blogging Heads folks. We're trying a new system for this, and we can see each other now, which
it's really nice.
It's much better than the old way of just sort of staring into your screen. So when I make a face, Kate can respond to that.
Yeah. It's actually good. You should do this all the time now.
Really refreshing. Yeah. Anyway, go on.
I was just saying that I think that Verrilli, but I do think that there will be a number of constituencies that will want to see themselves represented in an attorney general. So the LGBT community, Hispanic community. So that's why Tom Perez's name has been floated. There's a lesbian attorney general in California. No, not Camilla Harris. She's not a lesbian, but there's another lawyer, and I forget her name, but it is on BuzzFeed.com. I will think of it.
We'll drop the link in the in the links.
God, don't remember her name. But there are constituencies that will want to see, or the national security people will want someone who's maybe more into privacy.
I can see that playing a big factor. I mean, because this is national security, privacy, particularly under national security, is something that a lot of people on the left and the right are pretty unhappy with the Obama administration about.
Right. Yeah, totally. And again, these are positions that we don't really know where Don Verrilli is on them, right? I saw something really interesting on Twitter the other day, and this is not anything that would come from sources or the White House. It was just a good idea, which was make Jay Johnson, who's the Homeland Security Secretary, the Attorney General, and then so that he's already been vetted. They've approved him for Homeland Security. The Republicans would have a really hard time voting against him for Attorney General, right? Understands issues of security, is black, is trusted by the Obama administration, and then put
You know, Kate, I gotta say, as a person of color, the feeling I get is that, like, a lot of the country, I mean, a lot of the country who do not interact with black people a lot are kind of are. I don't know how open they will be, frankly, to more top black officials in the Obama administration. Frankly, I can just very much picture a lot of resistance to that. And
Like from the Senate?
no, not so much from the Senate, but maybe commentators and outside in just the political sphere. You know, I feel like every time we introduce or we pull in someone for confirmation hearings who is black, that takes over the discussion. And I really wonder how much Ferguson is going to play in these confirmation hearings, and how much, like, if Verrilli is nominated, what kind of questions he's going to get on Ferguson, and also from the black community, from the CBC, from black leaders. I wonder if that is too much of a headache for the administration on this, or on the flip side, if it is a plus on that matter.
My theory is that whatever they do, they're going to do it before the next Congress. And that takes away, like, it'll be one of those things where no matter what the noise level is, they'll continue on.
So we're going to see a big rush in the last few months.
It's going to be like Confirm-a-Palooza, man. They're just going to confirm everyone.
Confirm-a-Palooza. Let's get that trending. Let's get that on Twitter. Is there any other big appointment or, like, confirmations that should be on the radar of people or campaign reporters like me who have been no? Okay, all right. So that's, I mean,
unless you're, like, really into, like, the
my colleague Sahil Kapoor could tell me more about circuit judges. That
Sahil knows.
Yeah,
that stuff. I don't know.
But the one thing I do know about are campaigns.
Yeah.
That was a much better segue.
That was a good thing.
And very recently, the hottest news right now is that there was a Des Moines Register poll out showing Joni Ernst up by 6 points over Democrat Bruce Braley in Iowa, which is the latest example of a really surprising race from the beginning, because in the very beginning of the cycle, Bruce Braley was the heavy favorite. I remember telling my editor, like, don't even worry about that race. Bruce Braley's going to win. You know, there's no threat there.
It was like, but he was like a shoe. Everyone was like, oh, he's a shoo-in.
Yeah, it's just
no
like,
issue.
You know, that's a sleeper. Let's talk about something else. And it turned out to not be the case. Ernst has proven to be a very formidable candidate. She has the support of both major wings of the GOP right now, the establishment right and the anti-establishment Tea Party outside group, SCF far right, I guess. And this is a legitimate pollster. This is a strong pollster. Des Moines Register is a very good paper, and they know their stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I've been looking at crosstabs on this race a lot lately, and the sense I've gotten is that it's not so much people are just really excited about Ernst. There's just, like, you know, he
was losing, like, rural voters 58-15. That's, like, insane,
right? And
losing his congressional district. And I mean, in this poll, it was like stunning. I mean, and I don't think we can overstate how crucial his gaffe about, you know,
So
Chuck Grassley was
the big
really
thing
big
was
deal.
that he was in Braley is an attorney, and he was at a private fundraiser in Texas among trial attorneys. Which, by the way, if you're gonna, like, make a gaffe, you don't want to do it among trial lawyers,
right?
Like, those guys are not the place to do it.
Right.
And he was taped warning that if Republicans take control of the Senate, Chuck Grassley, who's a farmer, will chair the Senate Judiciary Committee. Now, as a candidate for Senate in Iowa, not the greatest thing to say. Pretty dopey. And that's haunted him ever since. And Republicans have also tried to hype up follow-up examples. There's one where he's at a parade and he's talking to
That one was a little
someone young, and like they say, I'm a farmer, and he says, I am too, which didn't stick as much and it's not quite the red
because
herring.
I think he maybe heard like, I support farmer. It seemed like he maybe didn't.
Right. And he comes from a farming family.
Yeah.
But it still calls attention to like this thing that is a big part of Iowa and the character of Iowa nationally. It's not good. It's not good, and it hasn't been a good week for Democrats in the Senate. I think we might be seeing the states that are the real serious ones. And last week we saw a lot of talk about how North Carolina is looking pretty okay for Democrats, but Arkansas, Alaska, and Iowa, I think, are the three seats that might be the ones that give. I have been.
It would be crazy if it was Iowa.
I know.
It would actually be insane. I mean, but I also think that Iowans in general, they want to feel very close to their candidate. And part of what they don't like about Braley is that he from the beginning, it was like, oh, this is just my seat. Like, it was just, he felt very entitled to it, right? It reminds me of like Hillary in the Iowa caucus in 2008 when they kind of walked in, they're like, oh, we don't really have to do this and shake anyone's hand. And
Iowa and New Hampshire voters don't like being taken for granted, or like they like to be praised, and they like being, the wine. Wooed. Yeah, wooed. They like all of that. Wined and dined here. And it seems like that all played into Ernst. I mean, there's that. She never was the favorite, or she was always sort of the long shot, and she had that ad about hog castration. So on one hand, you have someone who's kind of scoffing at farmers and saying they can't do, and look, law is hard, okay? So having a law degree might be helpful as the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, but at the same time, Chuck Grassley has been on that committee for a while, and he's a ranking member. He knows his stuff.
Yeah.
And so you have that on the other.
He's also beloved. He is beloved in Iowa. I'm serious. And like, so when you talk smack about Chuck Grassley, like even as a Democrat, I just is not going to go over well. Even if like you feel like your point is valid and the audience, like nothing about that was going to go over well.
I don't know. I'm going to be interested to look more into the crosstabs and talk to the forecasters I trust. It's real late for an outlier like this. It's not, and Democrats have called attention to Ernst. They've worked hard to highlight Ernst being an extremist and having really super conservative positions. And I don't know. I mean, what strikes me is that that's not. The issue is people want to be excited about candidates, and I think I was saying this the other day, like, this is a negative cycle, and there are no prospects that politics in general are going to get any more positive anytime soon. So when you have someone who's trying to run a positive campaign, I wonder how effective that is. And the Braley people I've talked to recently on this have sort of said, yeah, we're doing the introducing part now, but I wonder if it's too late.
It feels really late for that to me.
It's 6 weeks, and even the guys I've talked to said, we could have rolled out the personalities a little bit earlier, done the positive spots.
But they didn't think they had to. They didn't think they had to.
No one thought that. Okay, I mean, everyone thought that seat was safe blue from the beginning.
I still have people that are like, no, Iowa. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, and Democrats today were freaking out about it on Twitter and stuff, and pushing really hard back on the poll, saying that like didn't count enough independents and that there were still so many votes up for grabs. But it's like in this cycle with this sort of negativity towards the president, and people really aren't feeling the benefits of the economy getting better. Like, it's going to be a hard gap to close, I think.
It's funny. I mean, one of the big patterns of this cycle that I've noticed is that there have been these candidates that you would think were like the shoo-ins in their Senate races. Mississippi with Thad Cochran. Pat Roberts. Gary Peters in Michigan, and Bruce Braley, all who we assumed were safe seats, and it turns out that they were not as safe. And Pat Roberts, like this guy Greg Orman, is a very serious threat to him.
Yeah, I think it's hurting. I think it's hurting him a lot. Just kind of even having to campaign in the way that he's had to campaign, and was unprepared financially and otherwise for the kind of attacks, both from his primary against Milton Wolfe, and then sort of not, like, Greg Orman kind of came out of nowhere, right? Like, it felt that way a little bit.
Well, I think that's entirely accurate.
Yeah.
Like, most of the stories are about him are like, who is this guy? And there's it's not like he's not even like one of these businessmen that sort of floats running, and you're sort of like, oh yeah, I know who he is. He came out of nowhere.
Right.
I don't, I wonder if I think maybe it's possible that, like, Democrats could lose Arkansas, Alaska, and Iowa and pick up Kansas.
But we don't know if
right, because Orman has said he's going to stick with the majority.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, it's a great way to keep attention on you.
Totally. Totally.
So I don't know. Real quick, this is from the last episode.
Okay.
They announced season 2 of True Detective, and it's with Colin Farrell and Vince Vaughn, which makes absolutely no sense to me.
True.
I watched, my favorite Colin Farrell movie is The Recruit, which is a very silly, it's like an airplane movie you fall asleep to on a 4-hour flight.
Yeah.
Something. It's not very good. And like Matthew McConaughey is such a serious, dramatic actor, and he's doing all these roles now. And these guys are just kind of like, they're goofy. And see, Kate, you can see me waving my hands and making a big deal. You said calm down last time.
Yeah,
This is me here.
Vince Vaughn, right? Like,
all I can think of Vince Vaughn is Wedding Crashers and that movie. Just like, what?
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I'll watch probably, right? Because I'll always tune in. Basically, when HBO ever does anything new, I generally tune into it because I think they do a really good job.
Do you watch Game of Thrones?
I don't, because I don't really like the.
Boom.
Sorry.
Called it. You're not offending me.
How did you know I wouldn't watch?
I
watched
Silicon Valley.
I love Silicon Valley. It got really, really good at the end.
I watched the first episode. I've been meaning to come back to it. The thing that would make me want to come back more is that the people I've heard say that is they get what's happening in San Francisco and that culture and that life in the same way. I think people really like Veep captures a lot of like how DC works.
Right. I love Veep. I actually really love Girls, and I will not apologize for it because I think it's a fabulous show and it's really well written.
Mm-hmm.
And
I had a full arc on Girls. I went because at first I didn't like it, then I watched it, then I liked it a lot because I think it really captures I think Girls and like New Girl and even Two Broke Girls, which I don't watch. The theme of all these shows is that 20-somethings now don't have money, and we were all promised this thing about we were all told you have to get married, you have to set up a life, you have to have a car and a steady job now, and that's not the situation, and that's what all these shows sort of get. But I just think it's incredibly well done. So, but True Detective was fun. It was fun as an event. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I think you and I talked about this last time in our interview that shall never be seen here. Force them over, homie.
That True Detective, it just didn't, it had a beginning, a middle, and an end, and there was weird shit that happened around it, but it ended, you know? You're all right, I get that. So I'm willing to give it another chance. I'm willing to see what happens, see what they do. I'm with you that I don't think it's the most best casting, but they could surprise us. You don't know.
I don't know. And you know what? Frankly, like, season 3 can always be some of these lawmakers who are about to be elected out of office or something. I'm not naming names, but like, I'm like, we'll like, I don't know. We could see a few of them. Eric Cantor and
Bruce Braley
and Bruce Braley. I would watch that. I would like to see what that's like.
Joe Walsh, who was
Joe Walsh. Eric,
No,
we don't know that Bruce Braley is gonna lose, but it looks real serious.
Yeah. It'll be close. It'll be
close. And that's
I don't know if it'll be by 6, but it'll be close.
That's one of my frustrations, this cycle. It's like every race is close.
Yeah.
So we don't really know what's going to happen on November 4th.
Right.
6th. Anyway.
Sometime in early November, guys.
Oh, my God. Jesus Christ. Great. It's Sunday, y'all. Give me a break.
I know.
All right, Kate. Thank you very much for round 2. This was a pleasure. I think this was better than the first round.
I think so, too.
So we are all done. Thanks for joining Woodruff and Strauss. Betsy Woodruff will be back next time. Thanks.